Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. HTM here. All month long we've been speculating about the kinds of updates we might see from the next chapter of the Elder Scrolls Online coming in 2020. We've talked about this at length in other videos right here on the channel, so if you haven't seen those videos yet, I definitely recommend you check those out before jumping into this discussion, because I'm going to be referencing some of those ideas from earlier videos. I'll have links to those in the description below. So Skyrim has been confirmed as the next chapter for 2020, but Skyrim is also huge and there's an absolute truckload of content that the ESO developers could pull from to develop the next 4 DLCs. Well, there's been a lot of hints delivered by ZeniMax in-game, out of game, including real-life actual maps delivered to ESO users this week. I want to discuss one possible update, which myself and many other players are still hoping to see in 2020, and that's an update to vampires. So first off, why vampires? Well, since it has been confirmed that we are headed to Skyrim in the next chapter of ESO, there's some pretty strong connections in that province that have to do with vampires. A lot of this is explored in more detail in the Elder Scrolls V Skyrim game itself, specifically in the Dawnguard DLC. In that DLC, you as the Dragonborn meet a clan of vampires led by Lord Harkon, a vampire lord of great power and influence who's been active in Skyrim for centuries. Now, as a vampire, Harkon's greatest enemy, of course, was the sun, and since his transformation, he's looked for ways to destroy it. Eventually, he uncovered this prophecy written by a snow elf. It was called the Tyranny of the Sun, and Harkon learned that if it were fulfilled, it would blot out the sun forever, sending the world into darkness and letting vampires rule and reign over Tamriel. To complete this ancient prophecy, Harkon basically needed 2 things. He needed an artifact, Ariel's bow, as well as the blood of a daughter of Cold Harbor, which would actually come from his own daughter, Serana. Harkon's wife, Valerica, though, wasn't having anything to do with this, even though she herself was a vampire as well. She believed that if this eternal night fell on the world, it would bring too much attention on the vampires and ultimately would lead to their destruction. So Valerica attempted to stop the prophecy. She ran away from Harkon, taking 2 Elder Scrolls with her, as well as her daughter. Now she sealed Serana in the crypts of Dim Hollow for her own protection. She also escaped to the Soul Cairn with an Elder Scroll, basically betraying Harkon and stopping his plot from concluding. And all of this, of course, sets up the Dawnguard DLC, which you can play and experience in Elder Scrolls V. So I think there are some connections here which could be explored in ESO Skyrim next year in 2020. Of course, there's Harkon himself, who we experienced thousands of years later in the Elder Scrolls V game. His transformation and the creation of his clan, the whole falling out with Valerica and Serana, it occurs sometime in the 1st and 2nd era. It's kind of unsure when exactly that happens, but it's roughly in the same time period as ESO. We also know that Harkon made a deal with Molag Bal, who we already know from the main ESO storyline, and that Molag was basically responsible for turning Harkon, Valerica, and Serana into pureblood vampires. So essentially we have some interesting and pretty popular characters in Elder Scrolls lore who would be available in this timeline and in this location. Personally, I think it would be great to see maybe the beginnings of Harkon's vampire bloodline story play out in ESO. Maybe we could get more backstory of the family's transformation, about where the wife and the daughter went into hiding with the Elder Scrolls. I know it's a little bit fan servicey, yeah, but we also know that the team of Zos is into this kind of nostalgia milking, and they regularly serve it up to players because we like it and we buy into it. Now, in terms of the timeline, it is a little bit sketchy at points. We don't know exactly when Serana was sealed in her tomb, for example. She may have already been sealed inside by the time that we are playing in the Elder Scrolls universe. But even if that's the case, we can still have interactions with Harkon, with Valerica, with the whole clan of vampires. You know, maybe we would be called to the Soul Cairn by Valerica, or maybe we would defend Serana's tomb from the discovery of Harkon. I could see any possible storyline similar to this fitting in really well in ESO, maybe even being part of a DLC dungeon pack. Now there is more to explore here than just simple lore connections, which is what I wanted to talk about next. So this year we've had limited data mining compared to previous years, I think, but what's been uncovered has been really interesting. Now in the last video we talked about the Gloomspore crown crates, which are most likely created, and we'll see those in 2020. Those perhaps hinting at a Blackreach connection. We talked about this in the other video, that the artwork here heavily features mushrooms, which factor into the environment and the atmosphere of Blackreach. Now, interestingly enough, we also have another crown crate which was data mined, this one called the Nightfall crate. Now, the name here itself just kind of screams vampire theme to me. Even the story of Harkon, where he attempts to bring an eternal night to Tamriel through the Dawnguard DLC, that fits perfectly with the name Nightfall. There was also new resource files uncovered for 2020, including some artwork with the word Gothic in the title. Now, Gothic is also a style that could be attributed to a dark or vampiric theme in some way, maybe even having to do with Harkon's castle. I don't know, but the connection here seems pretty plausible, I would say. So again, not only do we have possible connections with the game's lore and with the locations in Skyrim, but we've got further evidence with actual in-game items and crown crates. In the Dawnguard storyline from Skyrim, you as the Dragonborn can choose to join forces with Harkon, which ultimately unlocks a new vampire skill line and a new, more powerful form, the Vampire Lord. You can also choose to fight against Harkon, joining the vampire hunting Dawnguard, which unlocks new weapons like the crossbow. So in terms of what a new chapter typically brings in ESO, I think this checks off some of the boxes we would be looking for in terms of new content, specifically new weapons or even new skill lines. Now, I know myself and many of you would be really excited to see some improvements when it comes to the vampire skill line in ESO. This skill line is frankly a little bit boring at this point and underpowered compared to other skills in the game, and I think it's in definite need of some improvement in 2020. So is it possible that a full rework of the skill line could take place? I think it is, based on the factors that we talked about earlier. One thing we might compare this to is the Wolf Hunter DLC in ESO. This was a werewolf-themed dungeon DLC, which also brought with it several new updates and improvements to the werewolf skill line. Now, something like that has not happened yet with the vampire skill line in ESO, but I think it could be easily done in 2020 in ESO Skyrim like we talked about, considering the connections with vampires in this region. In terms of what might change, first of all, there's never really been an active vampire form and skill line, which is a little bit underwhelming, I think. Werewolves do have that active transformation, and vampires do not. Now, of course, we do see a new form in the Dawnguard DLC for Skyrim. You can transform into the full Vampire Lord form, changing your appearance and gaining access to new skills and abilities. So something like this could take place in ESO as part of this vampire rework. Now, many vampire skills from Skyrim are already in ESO, including Mistform and Drain abilities, but there are some additions which I think could fit, like Blood Healing, maybe a Vampire Bite melee attack. There's this Vampire Pull effect, or even summoning gargoyles. Yeah, gargoyles, that's part of Skyrim, and that could be added to ESO as well. And of course, that doesn't rule out new, maybe other vampire-themed skills that we haven't seen before. So will vampire-themed content and upgrades be hitting ESO in 2020? I think the potential is definitely there, and I would love to see it. Certainly the region of Skyrim and some of the data mined info we've seen seems to support this, but most of all, I think this would be a great service to fans who just want to play as a vampire in ESO, but maybe feel a little bit let down by how the skill currently works in the game. Personally, I would love to do some fully fleshed out vampire builds. See what I did there? Fleshed out. Right here on the channel, and hopefully I'll be able to start that in 2020. But of course, this is all purely speculation at this point, and I could be wrong. I'd love to know, though, what you think about all this in the comments section below. Do you think we are due for a vampire upgrade in ESO? And do you think ESO Skyrim could deliver on those features? Let me know what you think. As always, if you enjoyed the video today, don't forget to crush that like button. If you're new here, take a bite out of that juicy subscribe button so you don't miss any of the action. Y'all are amazing, thanks for watching. I hope you have a great day, and I will see you around in the next video.